I'm your host, Elisa Metcalf. Books in the World is an interview show produced by the Cape Cod Writers Center and the Cape Media Center. The Writers Center was established over 6 decades ago and sponsors a 4-day writers conference every summer on Cape Cod. The goal of Books in the World is to show how writers, illustrators, publishers, and others in the literary field play their roles in the world of books and communication media. This show has been running continuously since 1978, making it the longest running program of its kind in the United States. Today, we are delighted to welcome Stephen Manchester, author of Yearbooks and Yoyos, Crushing the 80s. Steve, known as New England Storyteller, is a national best-selling, multi-award-winning author of some 24 books. 3 of his short stories were selected for 101 Best for the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. His novella, The Thursday Night Club, was adapted to screen, winning both New York International and LA Film Awards. In case that's not enough, he's also a multi-produced playwright. His latest novel, Yearbooks and Yoyos, Crushing the 80s, is a hysterical walk down memory lane, the 3rd installment of his nostalgia-filled series about growing up in a wacky family during the 1980s. Steve, welcome.
Thank you, Elisa. It's an honor to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. The first question I have before we dig into the book is I want to talk about the endorsements.
Yes.
So this book has pages of endorsements from some of the 80s, the greatest 1980s icons. For instance, Jamie Farr from MASH, Lou Grant, Barry Williams, aka Greg Brady, Joan Van Ark from Knots Landing, rock and roll icons such as Billy Squier and Thomas Dolby, in addition to actors from the Waltons, Footloose, the Warriors, the Jeffersons, and that's only naming a handful.
Right.
My question is, what?
Yeah, it's crazy. It was as much fun as writing the book, right? So, you know, the whole series started in 2019. Actually, 2018, my dad passed away, and I'll be quick with this. He had a really twisted sense of humor, which I was blessed to get from him. I remember walking out of the hospital thinking, I need to write this man a book to say thank you for everything he had given me and my siblings. And then I decided to also not just write him a thank you letter in novel form, but also do a love letter to the 80s. And every book that I write, I'll go after New York Times bestsellers, right? And, you know, you'll throw different endorsements. My father wasn't that way. My father was the most unpretentious person you ever met. So I thought he'd get a real kick out of, you know, all of these celebrities who were, you know, big back in the 80s. So as I'm writing the book, most books take me, 6 to 9 months to write. These books took 3 to 4 months. Almost, quasi-autobiographical about me and my brothers, and I'm sure we'll get into it. But I had as much fun going after the endorsements. And I mean, if you like to fish, I threw as much bait as you could into the water. And I'll tell people all the time, like if you knock on enough doors, eventually, statistically, it has to open. So I went after 400 celebrities from the 80s.
What?
And I landed about 60 of them. Which is insane, but they're not as young as what we remember. Some of them aren't doing a whole lot, but it was fun just going after it.
Right, they had the time.
They did, they really did, and they were gracious to weigh in on it. So.
Yeah, because all of the books have, good number of celebrities. That's great. So tell us a little about this most recent book. So we've got 3. This is the 3rd in the series.
It is,
and
yeah.
The final? Or?
Yeah, well, we're saying it's the final. I mean, I've really enjoyed them, but, Bread Bags and Bullies takes place in the winter of 1984. So I basically bring the blizzard of 78, I bring it to 1984 in fiction form. I take 3 maniac brothers, I stick them in a house with their poor parents. Everybody's in the house. Mom makes 8 pounds of American chop suey, right? And these guys just go nuts. But it was a way for me to introduce the 80s for the food, MTV, some of the games that they played at the time, the whole thing. And it was just sheer mayhem. So for me, people always ask about a plot, not a big plot in these books, right? It's like a Seinfeld episode, right? It's just nostalgia. I get done with the book, I figure, well, I'm done, that was fun. And then I realize, well, these guys need a little more real estate. So I do Lawn Darts and Lemonade, I bring it to the summer of 1984. Now, once you open the doors, they're riding their bikes to the amusement park, right? It's the corner store with penny candy, all the fun stuff that, that we remember. And then my readers start to really get onto it, right? And I'm thinking this is a New England book, but it really wasn't. There's people out in the Midwest that grew up the same way we did. And the final one is what I believe is the final installment, right? At least I tell people that. But it takes place during the older brothers' graduation. So they're kind of graduating from childhood into adulthood. So there's some sorrow almost to it, right? Because the innocence of childhood is gone. And I think in the late 80s, we were at the end of that age of innocence, right? And then technology took over and everybody's on their phones and, but we were out of the house and my mother, I think, locked the door during the day, right? You couldn't come in until that street light went on. So we had the run of the roost.
That's great, and there's 80s references galore.
Yeah, nonstop.
In these books.
Nonstop.
So how much work was it not to repeat them, or did that not matter? Like
No,
if there was a Cyndi Lauper song in
Yeah.
Bread Bags and Bullies, there could be another
Right.
Cyndi Lauper.
I mean, I had my hit list, as you know, as a fellow writer. So I there was certain research that I did. So I immersed myself. So I was listening to nothing but 80s music. I was watching 80s films. There were shows. My brothers and I would watch The Dukes of Hazzard, right, religiously on a Friday night. And here's me trying to explain to my children, you couldn't rewind anything. Like if you didn't see it and you weren't sitting there eating popcorn, you missed it, right? And now, as I'm writing the book, I'm watching The Dukes of Hazzard. I'm thinking, oh dear God, I thought this was a good show at the time, right? So I immersed myself in it, but I just love going back in my mind and almost like this photo album that I have of my own childhood and kind of bringing it there. And then, as I said, the readers really embraced it. My brothers were, you fictionalize this. Yeah, it's a novel, right? So I fictionalized it, but I had so much fun with it.
Yeah, and so it's the point of view from the three brothers
Yes.
who were Wally, the oldest, Herbie,
Wally,
the middle, and
right.
then Alphonse, a.k.a.
Alphonse.
Cockroach.
Cockroach, right. And Cockroach is now a full bird colonel in the Air Force, right? So in real life, yeah.
So do you have three brothers?
I do. I grew up with, so I'm the middle of the three, three maniacs. My older brother joined the Marine Corps. I went in the Army. My younger brother was in the Air Force. Too bad we didn't have another one. We could have had a Navy guy. But each one of us recalls our childhood in a my parents didn't have any money, right? And they weren't the perfect parents, but they were perfect for us, right? So the way that I grew up, we didn't have everything, right? So you had to become resourceful, and it really served me in my life, and I think it's made me a better dad as well. But to be able to share that with my two brothers has been, such a blessing.
Right.
Yeah.
The parents, I was going to ask you, the parents are, at least in this book anyway, they're a bit in the backgroround. I mean, obviously, it's not their point of view.
Right.
They don't get a point of view, which is fine.
Sure.
But they feel a little distant. Was that on purpose?
In the last one, they do, because these guys are getting older, right? So it's almost like, my wife and I have raised 4 kids, right? And you raise your children so that they don't need you. And that's the greatest thing, right? And then the worst thing is that they don't need you, right? So there was a lot of that in this book where it was like, we're getting, he's finishing high school, we're getting on with things. Herbie, who's, the protagonist, is really based on my character, gets his license. Once he gets his license, see you later, right? I'm going to fill up my tank and I'll see you guys next week. So there's a lot of that goes on. I think in the 2 earlier books, you see more of the parents and more of that dysfunction, but it's surrounded by love. And it's absolute mayhem,
Right.
and I love that.
Yeah, when they do appear, it's to give some encouragement or words of advice.
Yeah.
Like you could tell they were decent people and good parents, and they set a good example.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, as far as the references go, my upbringing during the 80s in New York City was quite different than these kids.
Sure.
But more the Anthony Bourdain story. But the references, they still relate, which is why even though, I completely understand why people not from New England would get the book. I mean, I had an orange Ford Pinto.
Right.
And my mother smoked Carlton 100s.
There you go, the red pack.
Their mothers,
Right.
and I certainly did the big shoulder pads. And I've still got the 80s rock star hair.
Right, absolutely, right, with the aqua net. And I'll tell you, we released the first book and launched the book from a roller skating rink, right, which was awesome. So everybody who grew up with me is now a little bit older. Physical recovery time during injury isn't the same, right? And we had 4 major injuries. One person actually shattered a tooth. There was a sprained ankle. I mean, but it was glorious, right? Because everybody still thinks that they're 17, 18 years old. It's a Friday night. You're at Lincoln Park roller skating, and you're not. You're in your late 40s, early 50s, and you're falling to the ground. But it was really wild to be able to share this with my kids. And now I have 3 grandchildren, so to be able to just capture that time and place, I don't have to tell them about it. They can read about it now.
Right. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Did the characters, as you were writing it, did the characters ever deviate from your original plan or take on their own life?
Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny because the protagonist is, the middle brother, right? So if you're the middle child, you have to pivot, right? You're the peacemaker, And my older brother is like really mechanically inclined. In fact, he worked for NASCAR for many years, and then my younger brother, more of a math guy, and I'm the guy that plays with words and strings them together, right? So in this, it was really about our childhood, right? The bunk beds and the beanbag chairs and playing with the Atari 2600. But then I start to remember how we evolved and became who we were, right? Because we all started in the same place, but then you evolve into who you become. And then I realized how much I love these people, right? And how my foundation was so solid. I tell my kids today, there was a time when, every year my family would have a cookout in the summer, and, both sides of the grandparents are there, so the in-laws, the outlaws, the aunts, uncles, everything. And I couldn't wait to get in my buddy's 72 Duster and just take off, right, and go to the beach. And now what I wouldn't give to be in that yard again with all these people.
Right.
And this is what this was for me.
Yeah, that is reflective in the story too. Yeah, this is great. So you've already answered the question about how, that it is based closely on your your own family.
It is.
But the location as well, did you grow up near where?
I grew up in Westport, right? So the whole thing takes place in like South Coast, Massachusetts. So Lincoln Park, and if anybody remembers that from the audience, my grandfather, my Pepe, ran the roller coaster, the Comet, for 32 years. So we used to ride our bikes down there, and you chain them up, and you go to get on the coaster, and he, hit the bar, and he's like, "Does your mom know you're here?" "Yeah, she knows, Pepe." And by the time we rode home, she had already called, and we never told her we were there, you know what I mean? So we get in trouble, and we go back the next week. But just remembering that type of stuff where it was just awesome. It was awesome to go back in time like that.
Right. Yeah, there's some, there's a scene at the racetrack,
yes.
right? What was the name of the racetrack?
Seekonk Speedway.
Seekonk Speedway.
Yeah.
And you name one of the drivers Manchester.
Yeah, Billy Manchester, who's my brother.
Oh, okay.
So imagine it's like this multiverse thing, right? Where in the story he's Wally, right? And in real life his name's William or Billy. And my brother raced in Seekonk for many years, and then ended up down south racing. And so a lot of it, like, they're winks, right? So I'm just constantly giving winks to people along the way. And I also use a lot of names of people who have since passed away, where it was a next door neighbor that had an impact on my life, and I'll use them as a secondary character, right? But it's a wink to their family, right? And I would never put anything demeaning, so it has to be something positive, right? But in a way, again, it's all based on humor, but when you get a little bit deeper, right, there's a lot of love there.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Cockroach, the young kid,
yes.
Alphonse. I don't like to call him Cockroach.
Yeah, he's the spinoff.
He's also a prankster.
Yeah, he is.
So tell us a little bit about the pranks he pulls on the neighbors.
Oh my God. So, the prank phone calls, it starts with, calling the Chinese restaurant. He orders, $60 worth of food back in 1988. Doesn't go to pick it up. The next week calls the Chinese restaurant again. Suddenly this family can't buy Chinese food anymore, right? And at one point, he tries to get the neighbor's car to get towed, but he's trying to sound like an adult on the phone, and it's just hilarious how it played out. Very similar to real life.
I was going to ask you, because
right.
some of the details are so specific.
Right. And the
this
more I wrote,
poor family probably could never eat anywhere in the whole town.
It was hilarious, and because he was a paper boy and the family wouldn't tip him, you know what I mean? Even
right,
at
that's
Christmas
his
time.
Motivation.
So there's a price to pay for everything. There are consequences, but I loved his character so much, and I adore both my brothers. But as I'm writing these books, it was like, oh, this is from Herbie's point of view, who is me, right? Loosely based, but everything that came up with Cockroach, it made me laugh, right? And then it was, the next door neighbor, Fish Stick. So you had Cockroach and Fish Stick, and they would take off and have these adventures. And I'm thinking, wow, I could put a whole series on these guys, because I just, I get lost in talking about them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And some of the details also about the restaurant work. Doesn't Wally work as a busboy
and a
Oriental
dishwasher? Pearl restaurant.
And I started working in the restaurants when I was a kid too, and all back of the house type of stuff. And I'm thinking, Steve knows a lot more about this. I mean, the details were so specific. I was thinking, surely you've washed dishes and bus tables.
Right, and we were hustling. I mean, I had 2 paper routes, and then I'm bussing tables at a Chinese restaurant. Then the woodworking factory opens up, and we're going to school half days, working half days. So we hustled. I mean, we were very resourceful in that sense. But if you wanted a car, you had to pay for it. If you wanted car insurance or put fuel in the tank, you had to pay for it. So you bought your own freedom, right, as you went. And I tell you, I still tell people this today. And I'll often talk to kids, especially kids who are up-and-coming writers, and I say, the greatest thing my parents gave me and my siblings, and I have 2 sisters as well who were born, later on, but was wings. If you want it, go get it. We don't get what we wish for, we get what we work for, and that's stuck with me, and I've done everything I can to try to teach my kids the same.
Right.
So they did a lot for us, but, as far as you wanting something, if you want it, you can have it. Go work
Right,
for it.
yeah.
So
Good
it was that
advice.
was the big lesson. Yeah.
So about your writing process.
Yeah.
Plotter or pantser?
Plotter now started as the kitchen sink, right, where I'd be all over the place. But what happens is if I don't plot a storyboard, then I literally will take months and months and months to try to put together versus coming up with an outline, something that I can work in. I mean, if I have this outline and I'm kind of following the outline and all of a sudden this thing takes a right and takes a back road off the highway, I'll go up the back road. I won't stop, right? But it's important for me to see that target. And I don't know, especially the older I get, the more experience I have as a writer. I don't know how some writers will sit down and not have an end goal, right?
Right.
Even if the ending changes, and you know this, right? But
Yes, you got to be writing towards something.
you have to have a target that you're aiming for, and it could change, which is fine. But for me, I definitely plot at this point.
And as far as storytelling, you credit your grandfather as
Yes.
being a great storyteller.
amazing storyteller.
And yeah, tell us a little bit about
So
that.
he could make you laugh, cry. I mean, and I know this sounds a bit cliche, like a Norman Rockwell painting, right? But you'd sit at the foot of his rocking chair and he'd tell a story. I couldn't tell what was fact, fiction, whether he made it up, didn't make it up, and it didn't even matter. But he could make you laugh, he could make you cry. But what he taught me was words have the power to connect us, right? And I knew that there was a powerful thing about being able to tell a story and bring people into it, right? 1991, I flipped a Humvee in southern Iraq during the first Gulf War. And I was stuck for 3 hours. And I remember, and I'm a man of faith, so I'm in prayer, but it was either the Iraqis are coming or the Americans are coming. And it was such a turning point in my life. And at 23 in the Army, that's, you're considered an old man. I was a squad leader. I had people under me. And I made a promise, not if, but when I get home, I'm going to chase my dream down and become a published author so that I can tell stories where, and I've written, as you said, over 24 books, but the underpinning or underlying stories that I tell is you're never alone. None of us are alone. So when you read my stuff, it should make you feel as if you're in the boat with somebody else and you don't feel alone. And that's really been my mission for the last 30 years.
Right. What a great gift to your grandfather.
Yeah, it is.
To do this.
Yeah, and his nickname was, and he came from Westport, so, his nickname was Swamp Yankee. So when I got into the Gulf War, my call sign was Swamp Yankee, and I took great pride in it because on your uniform you got U.S. Army, but I also have my last name, which means a great deal to me, as it does to everybody else in my family. My father instilled that, my grandfather instilled that. So these books mean a great deal to me because it's a legacy from my family.
Right.
Yeah.
And Wally is going to join the service too, but he doesn't get in.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So these pieces, you're always pulling pieces
Absolutely.
from your life and
Yeah.
putting them there.
Yeah, yeah.
And Ashes too. You worked for a time
Right,
as
in the
in the
prison, yeah.
Department of Corrections,
Yeah.
and there's a character also
Right.
that.
And I wrote about a prison investigator. I was there for 10 years and really, really happy I did it. Really, really happy I left. But it's like, when you write, it's a lot of it's based on experience. I'll read a lot of young writers who are incredibly talented mechanically. And they'll ask me, what do you think? And, there's a difference between being kind and being, truthful, right? Most young writers, it's like, you don't lack writing talent, right? It's the experience. So the more you can go out and live your life and see things and, get your heart broken, right? Go do things that scare the hell out of you, right? I've done stand-up comedy and failed miserably at it, but I was able to write about it and it's, it just enhanced some of my writing. So get out there and live, right? And that's what I tell people. So for me, my writing is really based on experiences. And it doesn't have to be exactly the details, but it's the feelings.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What is the thing you like most about writing? What's the best part for you?
I'm inside, even though I live in this body, inside my head I'm 8 years old, right? So I'm able to really play as an 8-year-old with a much bigger vocabulary and obviously a lot more life experience, but I can really let myself go. So for me, writing the first 10, 15 minutes, and I'm not sure if you feel the same, but it's like pulling teeth out of a rhino, right? Like to get that train out of the station. But once I get chugging, I'm lost. Like I'm lost in my own world as a child would be, right? And I just really immerse myself in it. And I love that because, the world, there's so much going on right now that's so incredibly negative. So I'm able to escape some of it and go into my own world. And I miss some of the Kardashian episodes, but I'll be all right.
No, you didn't.
Thank God for reality TV. I can go downstairs and write.
So when the book is done,
Yes.
and you hit send to your editor, is
Yeah.
there this feeling of sorrow?
There is, because
Yeah,
I'm always
yeah.
connected. I think,
I feel
good
like that
writers
too.
make people think. I think, better writers make people feel. And for me, like, if I can't make you cry or make you laugh, as my grandfather did on that front porch, it's not worth it.
Right.
Not worth my time.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. It's a very successful career. So one of your books was made into a movie.
Yes.
What was that like?
It was very surreal. My daughter was in it, my daughter Bella, and she actually sings the opening track and the closing track on the film. We filmed it out in Connecticut. Gloria Gaynor was in it, so she did survive. She plays the doctor in the film. Very surreal because, when we write, any writer who's a novelist, when you write, you're writing here, right? Anything you want, you can put it all in. When you write a script, it's here and it's based on budget, right? So I may have written this scene, but all of a sudden, well, we can't really do it. So, we had a script supervisor who walked over. I think he was maybe 14, 15 years old, and he had the clipboard, and he said, Mr. Manchester, can you take a look at this? My name's Steve, but okay. So I read it, and he said, what do you think? I said, it's unrecognizable. But we had talked about before even the interview, right? Like, you have to let go of your ego, and all of a sudden, I created this, and then I handed it to a director who then created, in this case, it was her vision of it, who then handed it to the actors who created their vision of it. And then I sat back, and once I let the whole ego piece go, I really, truly enjoyed it. And it was something I could share with my daughter.
And the plot stayed
It
basically
did,
the
yeah,
same?
the essence of it. It's really about the essence, right? So
But
as long as you get that feeling.
And you were there on the set?
I was.
For
I
the whole
actually
thing,
walked
or?
through I walked through one of the scenes, and I didn't realize how big my head is, but the camera didn't pick up the whole head. And I walked through, and I'm supposed to be playing this college professor with a jacket on. I don't even think, it wasn't even my jacket. It didn't fit that well, so I think I'll stick behind the camera and just write. Yeah.
Yes. Great. So you talked about your military service.
Yeah.
Did you know you wanted to serve from a younger age? Like where was the...
Yeah, I
where
did.
that
I went
come
in the
from?
buddy system with a really, really good friend of mine, and we ended up, I was 17 years old when I went to basic training, so my mother had to sign off on it, and she was reluctant, but she knew I was going either way, right? And then from there, I went to military police school, and my dream was to be a Northern State Trooper. I wanted to, be up in New Hampshire, Vermont, and but life takes the path it takes, right? And I ended up working in the Department of Correction. I became an investigator. And at the time, I was in the National Guard, and as I said, I was a squad leader, but I was a military policeman. I take great pride in my service. I think it was a just cause for what we went to do. And the people that I serve with, when we see each other, today, which is 35 years later, we don't shake hands, we actually hug. They're family. Yeah. So that helped to define my life. It was such a crossroad. And I tell people all the time, the darkest 3 hours of my life became the greatest pivot point, right? Because I could have went one way or I could have went the other. And I actually chose to have a little more courage and say, listen, becoming a professional author is a 97% rejection rate. So that's a tough risk. But I only get one life, and I've seen people die in the most horrendous ways, right? And life is short, right? So we got to go chase it down. And I can't teach my kids to chase their dreams unless they see me do it.
And you recognize that.
Right.
I mean, some people don't recognize
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, for me, like, if you're going to do something, then commit, right? And I tell my kids all, like, be intentional. And it doesn't matter if you fail. Of course you're going to fail. I've failed. I was on an interview maybe 2 years ago, and somebody asked, what was the greatest thing you've ever given your children? And I said, I allowed them to watch me fail for almost 20 years. Mm-hmm. And then I win the New York Book Festival, and I'm at the podium, and I look at my kids and wink, and they know.
Right.
And I know.
Right.
What it took. And it's like, listen, it wasn't handed to me. I had to work for it. And I'm not bragging about that, but it was so important to instill that in them, that you can have whatever you want, but you're going to grind.
Yeah, and it is a very slow process.
It is.
And I think a lot of people aren't prepared for that.
No, they're not.
But the humility also, for you mentioned stand-up comedy. I've also done some stand-up comedy.
Which I know.
And yes,
Awesome.
and it is one of the hardest things,
terrifying.
if not the hardest thing. I would be dry heaving like all day before my 5-minute set that 3 people would be in the audience.
Right.
But still, it mattered that much. But it does teach you that humility.
It does.
And once you get over it.
Right. And I was able to talk about that type of fear and that terror. I remember I did 12 shows, and I promised my wife, there's no way you can do stand-up comedy and write. It's just ridiculous, right? Like, So I decided to do 12 shows, and it really was research for a book. But I remember the last show, there was 300 people in the audience, and my wife walked up to me, and she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "I'm not sure what the symptoms are to a stroke, but I'm not doing too good right now physically," right? And I get up in front, and then it felt like I had been doing it my whole life. I did 7 minutes. I think somebody who was incredibly kind laughed from the back, right? And I sat back down and said, "Thank God this is over," right? But there are times where I'd rather go back in the prison and get into it with some guys, right? Or get back on a plane and go to Iraq, right? Than get on stage. It's brutal. And for your audience, right? If you've ever wanted to try it, do it. If you question whether or not you're alive, get up on the stage with the spotlight on you. It's brutal.
Yeah, but it teaches you not to be afraid to fail, and you have to do that.
You have to be able to laugh at yourself, too.
And you're also very involved in the writing community. You give back a lot. You do a lot of, you teach webinars. And
I try to. It's a tough business. The one thing I try to, and I'll always try to be a cheerleader as much as I am a coach. But what I try to teach people is, you have to commit to this, right? It can't be something that, and I'll sit and talk to somebody who says, "Oh, I've been working on this book for a while." Okay, are you gonna, or I'm thinking about writing a book. Let me use this example. I'm thinking about writing a book. I'll say, "Well, you're gonna do any writing this afternoon?" "Well, no, not today." "Are you gonna write tomorrow?" "Well, I might, tomorrow we gotta go food shopping, this and that." There's a chance you're never gonna write this book. So just get a good TV, you know what I mean? Like, just load it up and start watching your shows. I mean, it's okay, but just if you're going to do this, you have to put the seat time in, right? You have to be disciplined. It's a craft. I have a friend, Brian Fox, and we're working on a project right now, and we laugh because people will say, "Well, you have to be inspired, or you're waiting for your muse." Your muse finds you when you're working, right? I'm inspired while I'm working. It's not like I need all of a sudden this bell goes off. No, you need to be in the
boredom
seat.
comes creativity.
Right.
Sitting there staring at the blinking cursor.
Grind it out.
That's where it comes from.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
we are sadly almost out of time.
That was quick.
Yes.
That went quick.
So I just wanted to make sure people know where to find your body of work.
Yeah. So I'm I'm on Facebook, I'm on social media, and I try to be approachable, especially to writers who are just starting, right? And so if I can help you, I will. As far as my work goes, it's the devil, but it's also the monopoly now, right? So all my stuff's on Amazon. You can purchase it there. StephenManchester.com is my website. If you haven't checked my stuff out, I would appreciate it if you give it a shot. And you don't have to buy it. I mean, my stuff is in the libraries as well. So, but I appreciate all new readers. I really do.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
We really appreciate it.
I've enjoyed it.
And thank you for watching the program. If you have enjoyed this program and you'd like to see more, you can find links on our website, CapeCodWritersCenter.org, through our Facebook page, and on YouTube. Thank you for watching Books in the World.